Welcome back. Fresh new data shows 1 in 5 Americans would like to leave the country permanently. That's according to a new Gallup survey. And younger women are behind that spike. 2 in 5 women, in fact, from the ages of 15 to 44 now say they want to leave the U.S. for good. That's 4 times as many from 2014, when just 1 in 10 wanted to live abroad. Benedict Vigers is a senior global news writer at Gallup and one of the authors of this study, and joins us now to help us understand what's behind it. Benedict, good morning. So I'm kind of fascinated by such a dramatic shift and change. From what you can tell, what's driving it?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'd say there's no one single smoking gun that lies behind this significant increase we've seen over the last decade, more of a range of factors. First of which is the issue of politics. So we've been asking this question for many years. And historically, there wasn't much of a partisan gap depending on whether people would want to move abroad, depending on how they viewed their leadership. That changed in 2017 upon President Trump's first election and has remained a partisan issue ever since. And we know that young women who've driven this spike in desire to migrate tend to lean more heavily towards Democrats than other groups. But that's not just politics that's playing a role. There's also an interesting trend when you come to look at people's confidence in institutions. So over the same period when young women have been growing increasingly keen to desire to move abroad permanently, they've seen a similar drop in their confidence in national institutions, particularly around the issue of the national judicial system and the courts. We think that is in part related to the 2022 Dobbs decision, around which we also saw a significant decrease in young women's satisfaction with their personal freedoms. But there's a whole range of factors playing into this over the last decade. And I think it's important to mention that this question that we asks people about their desire to migrate, not intentions or plans. And not everyone who expresses this will move.
Right.
But I think that in itself raises a more interesting question, which is how people, and young women in this case, see their futures in their country, their communities, and whether they offer them the chance to live thriving lives.
Right, and there's such a stark gender gap comparing women to men of the same age. I think your survey found there was a 20-point difference between men who felt the same way. Do we know where these women aspire to move to, and what this means overall?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And Gallup have been asking this to much of the world for 20 years. And such gaps, as you mentioned, between young men and young women are exceptionally rare. So in the 20 years we've been asking this to more than 140 countries annually, we'd never before this year seen a gap of more than 20 points between young women and young men in desire to migrate. That is until the United States this year, showing just how divided young men and young women are on this topic. And to your second question around where they'd like to go, we ask a follow-up question for those who say they would like to move. And this year, and in many years before, young women in America say they'd most like to move to Canada, with a relatively long list of other mostly high-income countries after that, places like New Zealand, Japan, Italy, and France, and many others.
Fascinating survey. Viewers can head to your website to see more. Benedict Vigers, we appreciate you joining us this Friday.
Thank you.